Welcome to another edition of Tribute to Blackness. In this edition, I'm going to be talking about the demonization of China, how Black people are being manipulated into participating in the game plan of white supremacy. And I'm going to break this particular presentation down into three parts. In part one, which I'm going to do right now, I'm going to be looking at white supremacy from Columbus to the coronavirus. In part two, I'm going to look at three countries that were destabilized by the West for challenging white supremacy. And in part three, I'm going to look at how the West is trying to destabilize the nation of China. Elijah Muhammad, the co-founder of the Nation of Islam, as he contemplated the evil machinations of the white collective, searched in his mind for a word that would capture the essence of the evil perpetrated by some members of the white race. After considering the amount of hell raised by some members of the Caucasian race, Elijah Muhammad concluded that if there was a devil, then the white collective came closest to the character of the devil. In his initial teachings, he therefore referred to all Caucasians as devils. Now, the current chief representative or chief spokesman of Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, with the support of Elijah Muhammad, who is now deceased, softened the teaching somewhat. In recent times, Minister Farrakhan has even extended the olive branch to members of the Caucasian race. Minister Farrakhan has gone on record saying that it is the mindset of white supremacy held by some white people which produces devils among Caucasians. Minister Farrakhan has even referred to a white Roman Catholic priest, Father Michael Pfleger, as his brother and his friend. And so in an age where human beings are beginning to appreciate just how interconnected and interdependent we all are as a species, it is very dangerous when one race of people try to act as though they alone have the right to exist and to enjoy the resources of this earth. Now, the time period between Columbus and the coronavirus can be considered as a period of European ascendancy. During this period, there were a number of major developments, and most of these, if not all of these major developments, were pushed more or less by Europe. First of all, there was the industrial age, which saw the introduction of mass production. And of course, that started the whole odyssey towards modernization and development in the world. Then after the age of the industrial age came the age of exploration and discovery. In 1492, you had Columbus setting out on his voyage, and Europeans basically started exploring the world. And as of course they explored the world, they came across many countries that were very fertile in land, rich in raw materials. And of course, the Europeans decided that they wanted a piece of the action in these countries. And so this led to the age of colonization, where European countries basically took control of whatever land, wherever they went. They basically set down their tents and decided that irrespective of who lived in the country before them, they were now the owners of these countries. That was the age of colonization. Then as we come closer to our time, we had the nuclear age, when the atom was split. And as one commentator, after seeing what devastating power was held in the splitting of the atom, he said, "We have now discovered the power of the gods." So we have a situation coming out of the nuclear age where mankind then gained possession of enough power basically to destroy life on Earth many times over. Then after the nuclear age came the space age. Mankind, not content with his dominion of this earth, decided that he wanted to transcend, to go beyond the boundaries of planet Earth. And of course, you had the moon landing, and now today we have all the various probes that have been sent out into space to see what lies beyond. And of course, you know, one of the big projects, we are really looking for another planet in the event that this one no longer is inhabitable. Mankind would like to find another planet that he can move to and start again afresh. And of course, now today we are in the information age where we have the spread of computers and information technology and the internet. And now you have the spread of 5G around the world, which is anticipated to produce another quantum leap in terms of our technological ability. And as I said, Europeans were basically the driving force in all of these major developments, perhaps with some help here and there from people in other races who may have made some very valuable contributions in terms of space technology and computing. Now, for about 500 years, Europe basically was the unparalleled leader in terms of politics, religion, economics. But now what we are beginning to see today is somewhat of a decline for Europe. And one area in which Europe is declining very significantly is in the area of population. Many countries in Europe, and indeed many countries where you have white majorities, the Caucasian race seems to be on a decline. In other words, the birth rates are not matching the death rates. More people seem to be dying than are being born. And so you're having a decrease in terms of the populations of white people globally. And of course, this has led to some concerns among white nationalists who are using the term white genocide. Or as people of color begin to move into Europe and across into America from Mexico and South America, you have many white nationalist groups who are very, very adamant that we are beginning to see the white genocide, where they're saying now that the white race is under threat, which of course helps to explain a lot of what is going on in America right now. So that's one area in which there has been a decline in the white race. Then of course, in terms of politics, you have the rise of China. Now China is fast becoming a geopolitical rival of the West. And then, of course, as you compare many European and American cities, we find that both Europe and America seems to be falling behind China and many of the Asian countries, especially in the area of technology application. For example, where cashless societies are concerned, China has leapfrogged the US and has gone way ahead of China. And if you were following how the Chinese are dealing with the coronavirus, you will see that the technological infrastructure that China has given not only China, but South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, all those Asian countries, they have been using technology in a very masterful way to help them combat the spread of the coronavirus. So all these areas seem to suggest that white dominance, white global dominance seem to be slipping somewhat. So a question that some people are curious about, how was it that white people who, basically if you look at their numbers, they are globally a minority, how is it that they have been able to control most of the world for over 500 years? That's a very good question, and let's explore that for a little. Now, as I said a little earlier, the browning of Europe and America has given birth to numerous white nationalist movements. And we're even seeing the reinvigoration of some of the older movements because these people have been accustomed to exercising power. Just how did they do it? Let's look at that. Now, the very first thing that you will notice that Europe built up armies. They were armed to the death, and so they were able to project their power any part of the globe in terms of their navies. They would deploy armies into Asia, armies into Africa. And of course, because of the superior firepower that they possess, it was very difficult for the native populations in Asia and in Africa and in the New World to be able to withstand the penetration of Europeans. And so Europeans were basically able to take over many of these areas. Now, as I said, coming out of the age of exploration and discovery, as Europe went to different parts of the globe, you had Vasco da Gama circumnavigating Africa, and of course they became very aware of the riches that could be found in Africa, not only in terms of the raw materials, but also as a rich source of labor. And so we found that the European countries embarked on a period of colonization where they sent waves of Europeans into different parts of the world, where they set up political governments. They demarcated boundaries and they set up governments in Africa and Asia and Caribbean, basically. And what they did was they started the period of colonization. Then after you had the independence movements that broke out in Asia and Africa and the Caribbean, the Europeans continued to rule in many of these areas, but in a more indirect way, through economics and sometimes resorting once again to outright military intervention. The European nations and of course the US were able to control many of their former colonies. Now, of course, in the colonies, you had many rulers who came to power who were totally and bitterly opposed to the rule of Europeans, either direct or indirect, in their colonies. And so many of them decided that they wanted to break away. And of course, you know that during the Cold War, many African and South American and Asian countries experimented with socialism, much to the disdain and disgust of the West. And of course, many of these countries who experimented with socialism became targets for attack of the West. We think of Castro in Cuba, we think of Nicaragua, we think of Venezuela, we think of some of the countries in Africa. Mugabe for some time called himself a socialist. And so wherever you found nations that were willing to oppose the West, there was always some counter revolution occurring. There was some coup occurring in these countries. There was some effort to destabilize these governments. And of course, in some instances, the leaders of these anti-West countries were actually assassinated. Then, of course, another tactic that the West used against many of the countries that were opposed to their dominance was the use of sanctions. And under sanctions, countries were basically forbidden to trade with the countries that were under sanction. And this, no doubt, created a lot of hardship. And even today, we still find that the West is using the power of sanctions against countries that are in opposition to them. And so basically, any nation that challenges global white supremacy will become the subject of one or many of the control strategies used by Caucasians to maintain their position of dominance in the world. Now, I would like to ask you as I come to the end of this segment. Remember, we have 2 more segments to go in this particular topic. So I'd like to thank you at this point for being with me today. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share this page with your contacts. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on this particular question. Has the 500 years of Caucasian rule been beneficial for the other races, especially the Black and the brown race? I'd like to hear your thoughts on that particular question. Asante sana rafiki zangu na kwaheri. As I've been telling people, I've been trying my best to learn a little Swahili. And I think that really means thank you very much and goodbye.
Thank you for watching, liking, and subscribing to this channel. Feel free to visit my author page at amazon.com/author/Leonard Phillips and browse my fiction and non-fiction titles. Your purchases and reviews would be greatly appreciated. Asante sana na teonene tina, which is Kish Swahili for thank you and see you soon.